Thank you so much for joining the We Don't Play podcast show today, Karachi. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great this morning.
I'm so glad that you're here. This has been an episode we've been trying to do for a while, if y'all don't know.
Yes, we've been both busy, but we're here now.
Exactly. I'm so glad that we've been able to make it. And today, we're going to be covering something that a lot of people don't really talk about, but they overlook until it gets serious for them. So I want us to make sure they get serious before it gets serious. So thank you for, spending time with us today to, discuss on the legal best practices for entrepreneurs, how they can, take over their intellectual property, be very cognizant with what's going on in the trends in the market, and also be very impactful to their society by being cognizant of, their business and the foundations and the fundamentals. So I'd love for you to, give us a brief intro. Just tell us who you are, how did you get started here, and what made that big change for you that you were like, that's the moment right there.
Yeah. So once again, my name is Karachi. I'm actually a technology attorney. And I'm probably wondering, what is a technology attorney? Well, I actually started off as a corporate attorney for a law firm doing your typical corporate work, such as M&A, venture capital, capital markets, securities, etc. But as I continued to practice, I was really interested in technology and pivoting to that space. But I was a corporate attorney, so I was trying to think of ways where I could, eventually pivot. And what I ended up doing was taking on technology clients, still doing corporate work for them, but taking on technology-focused, technology-centric clients. So that gave me the exposure that I needed to, be more comfortable with tech, their products and services across different clients and industries. And eventually I ended up going in-house to Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Reality Labs, etc. And that's where I completely retooled my practice to doing commercial transactions and technology transactions. So that's what I do now. SaaS, software licensing, digital products, media programming, data acquisitions and transfers. So I really work behind the scenes to drive the businesses forward, close deals, sign agreements, and whatnot. And I really love what I do because it gives me exposure to tech, but allows me to refine my legal skills, and I get exposure to a bunch of cool clients. But as a result of that, I see, because I've worked with startups as well in a law firm world, I've seen a lot of clients do things the wrong way, have great ideas, great businesses that they want to put forth, but they just don't have the legal down. And I think a lot of people and entrepreneurs don't think of legal until much later, when legal needs to be involved, honestly, at the idea stage. So that's where I am now. I've worked with startups, small companies to public companies, and I really just enjoy what I do.
That's beautiful. I love that you're in the tech world now because of AI, technology, a lot of things are happening. People are kind of losing their jobs in a way, and we're kind of like throwing it away, but it's really happening because of what's happening with the intensity of the market. And when you were speaking, a thought came to mind, and I was like, let me ask you this random question. And I think it will help the audience too. Let's create a hypothetical case where company A buys a domain and company B in another country, maybe same industry, maybe same NAICS code, has a trademark with that same name. Who's really gonna have the upper hand? Is it the trademark, or is it the domain? Is it when they purchased it? Is it who they purchased it from? Is it how they got the idea? How would someone go into that kind of fight? I know it's a little complicated.
So the way you would go into that fight is by hiring legal counsel. And honestly, this is why it's very important to hire legal counsel at the beginning, even at the idea stage. Because you can have an idea that's great, but you tie it to a name, right, that has already been kind of claimed by a different entity, maybe in the US, maybe outside the US. And Now, what you're coming across, what you will see is that, as you grow your business, maybe you've even started creating materials with your logo. Maybe you've even started advertising your business with your logo without ever going forward and trademarking it, right? Or at least consulting a trademark attorney who could at least do a search for you. And now your booming business is running. Next thing you know, you are trying to get your website, and there's another company that's already doing that. Now, what are you going to do with all of the materials you've already built around this product or service with this name? Not to say that you can't fix it, but it will cost you a large amount of money to either fix it or to abandon that name and rebrand. So that is why you actually need to loop in trademark counsel at the very beginning. And I am not trademark counsel, but this is why you should loop one in, so they can do searches for you, see if that name is available, tell you if that name is, currently filed underneath another entity, if there are other trademarks or other marks out there that potentially could be confused with that logo or your brand. And I think that that's something entrepreneurs just don't think about. They just think of the name. Oh, I haven't heard of this name. Maybe they do a Google search. It don't really see anything come up. But that doesn't mean that you should move forward with that business name.
That's a big one. That is a huge one. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask that question because I know some people are not. They're always like, I don't need a website. But I'm like, you need a website. Sorry, let me run this back. If you want to get funding, one of the things that you'll need is a website, because that is where they're going to validate you as a business, if you're really active or not. And that also is a portfolio. So you don't really want to say you don't have a website. So you putting this out is so important for people to think of. Now, I know business owners, startups, sometimes one of the things that are in the way is access to information. They may not know where to go, how to start. Do they Google? Do they go on YouTube? Do they look for referral? So how do they get started, and how do they prepare even financially to get that, taken care of?
You mean preparing for potential funding?
Not potential funding, because that would happen after. But when it comes to them establishing themselves, like taking care of, okay, I need to get a certificate of operation. I need to have an EIN. I need to have my Duns and Bradstreet if I'm a business. How can I get that so that legally I'm protecting myself and my assets without having to just ping pong anything that's going?
Yeah, so good, competent legal counsel will be able to do all of that for you. And that's why I say in the beginning, like even at the idea stage, you should loop in a lawyer that can help you, one, file your certificate of incorporation or whatever the equivalent name is of that document in whatever state you're filing in. They can ensure that, you don't just go and file something just to get your business up and running, because let's say you're a business that's really serious. Maybe there's nothing concrete now, but you'll eventually be up and running for funding. You would want your corporate documents to be drafted in a way that is not only thorough and efficient, but also attractive for investors. What I see a lot of times with startups or entrepreneurs is they just go, file something just to meet the state requirements, just so they can have their business operating. But then if you actually read the legal document that they filed, the certificate of incorporation, there's errors. Maybe they've issued an incorrect amount of shares. Maybe they didn't even think about who they wanted their board to be. That's very important. Who's on your board? Because the board makes all the decisions, essentially. The board will be the stop to future funding or future activity if the board is not in cohesion. So those are things you have to consult a lawyer for, so you can think through, who do you want on your board? Okay, how many shares do you want to issue to your founders? How many founders are you going to have? Because maybe you have 4 people who really helped with the idea, but they're not, maybe 2 out of those 4 people are not really the founders or the people who really conceptualize the idea. So this is something a startup lawyer would help you. We call them ECBC lawyers. They would help you think through the kind of beginning stages and the structure of your business. It's not as simple as just, oh, I need to file this and now my business exists. Then after they help you think through the structure of your business initially, assuming your goal is funding or investment, then they can help you do operational things like drafting, employment or consulting agreements, or maybe you'll need an advisor to come in and advise you rather than an employee per se. So that's something a lawyer can really sit down with you and think through, because not every business, and honestly most startups, are not going to be able to scale initially and do all the things you would think of a business doing, but they still need to protect themselves in the future when they get to that point and be cognizant of what legal issues they may run into. So that's really why I say start with a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, start with a startup ECVC lawyer who knows how to draft certificate of incorporation, board consents, shareholder consents as well. And then after your business is formed, nicely packaged, that's when you can think about things externally like your website, your LinkedIn page, maybe your social media pages as well, while you consult trademark counsel at that point who can help you get your website and social media materials together. Because you're right, investors, I think that's the first thing they're going to do is Google your company and see what's out there, if you have a website and other things like that.
So true. This is big. Thank you so much for that. That is a masterclass on its own, because I'm sure they're probably on ECVC. I've never heard that before. They'll probably figure out, okay, now I got to Google that. So this, it's like the more...
of emerging companies, venture capital.
Thank you. That's big. And I'm wondering, for someone who wants to decide on what they want to do, I think one of the limits too that involves the impediment to them getting further on where they already are, most times is also capital, because they're business, they're just starting. They're like, okay, I don't have any capital to even create this or have this expense. Should I come back when I've made money? Should I go and get funding? Should I focus on my website and start small? How can someone be very small step oriented that they're big vision minded too?
That's a great question. And I think a lot of startups would probably just be laser focused on investment funds. But there's a lot of free money out there. There's a lot of grants, scholarships, and different just money flowing to small businesses, minority-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses. So my advice is to honestly do some research. Do some heavy research as well. If you live in a city that is close to educational institutions as well, try to get close to them. A lot of times they'll have programs centered around, investment kind of for their school to, feed off of. So if you live in educational cities or cities that have financial institutions and whatnot, you should try to do some research about where you're living. Are there grants being distributed by these institutions? Are there any programs? Say if you join and, be a part of this cohort for a year, you'll get this amount of money and this sponsorship. I see those things all the time. I literally get a newsletter that's of no use to me because I'm not a business school student, but literally just lists like 100 or so grants out to businesses, startups. So I think, honestly, you should think through what your business is trying to do and try to get free money first. Don't initially just go for investors, because investors are not investing for no reason. They are going to want a piece of your company. And giving away a piece of your company so early before even seeing the growth might be a mistake. You could operate your company with minimal amount of investment or none at all. There are a few that have been able to do that. And I do think that's something that people should explore. A lot of times I see entrepreneurs talking about investment money before they've even really formed. And it's like, well, if you believe in your idea, then you should believe that it can make money without an investor first. Not to say you should never have an investor, but think about the value of your company. Who would see that value? And are there any resources out there to help you get ahead first?
Exactly. You mentioned that list. Can someone sign up for the list? Do they have to be part of an institution to get it?
Look into this list. I don't even know why I'm on this list, because I am not a business student and never was an MBA student. So I don't know why I'm getting this list, but I'll figure out what it is and let you know. And hopefully you can distribute it to your viewers. But I think it's an amazing list. I just see so many money and opportunities for businesses. I'm like, well, if I ever want to go into business, I know I can get free funding.
Exactly. Building your line of credit, getting your credit cards, getting your business in check, having your personal credit, down together, because funding is equals to credit. Like if you don't have that in place, you can't get a good home, you can't get a good car, you can't get a good secure funding. All those things come into play when it shows how serious you are as a business when it comes to discipline. So now I'm wondering, if that's the case, what would you say about businesses that want to maybe get into their local chamber of commerce? What would you tell them, and how would you advise them to as they tread lightly, especially if they don't know what they're getting into?
Yeah, so this is where business communication is very important. I'm very passionate about like business communication and just, business networking outside of being a lawyer, because I actually majored in business and I was a career consultant prior to going to law school. So I think like knowing how to literally just interact as a business person is a lost art, and it's very important. And I think your local chamber of commerce, as well as institutions like I just mentioned a few minutes ago, are great networking tools, are great opportunities to also maybe get contracts, put yourself out there. But I find that a lot of times people just don't even do research before they're reaching out. So I always do heavy research on someone. If I find that, that connection may be useful, I do my research. I look for ways that I can be beneficial and not just using another resource as well. Look for partnerships. I think don't look for areas where you can, use resources and drain them, but rather what can your business do to create a partnership or develop some sort of relationship that could be useful going forward for your business, for the Chamber of Commerce or whatever institution, and other organizations as well. I think you should think beyond the box, beyond like, oh, what can I use? What can you actually bring? And when you think of what you can bring, you as well can think of other ways people can help you.
That's good. Thank you for that information. I'm also thinking about, business assets, because when people are also building their assets, they are thinking about, oh, how can I maintain this? How can I do that? For example, I remember one story. I think I went to a friend's place and he was telling me that the person living in the home next to him was a company that pretty much Airbnb'd themselves in. So they just paid for the house instead of, their staff coming into the city for meetings, instead of spending money on hotel fees, transport fees. They just bought a house, and that's where they're able to, host their staff. That was, when I heard that, I was like, this is smart. This is what we should be doing these days as a business. So imagine a business owner trying to do the same thing as an asset, where they're able to build their home or have a home that they're buying in their business name, or buying a car in their business name. How should they go about it legally so that their business is not like, what's the word? There's no conflict of interest at some point where it's like, okay, I bought this balloon, but this balloon is not helping my business. And is it validated, as an actual fact that is part of an asset within the classification? So how does someone, proceed with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, we could have a whole session on like Airbnbs and cars and whatnot. But, just generally, it is possible to purchase things underneath your business name and then, run your business through that asset. For example, I've done that with my home. So I'm in the process of putting my home, which I purchased individually, but I'm now in the process of putting it underneath a trust. I've explored, purchasing through an LLC. And there are definitely advantages to that. And everyone's reason is different. Their motivations are different. So once again, you'll need to consult an attorney for every single transaction you're thinking of doing. But definitely that's something you should explore. Like, for example, if you want to buy a home, think about buying it underneath a trust versus individually. Of course, it's not simple. I'm saying it simply, but that doesn't mean it's a simple process. But you could do those things, as well as, getting licenses for your residence so you could put your home on Airbnb. I've done that as well, gotten a short-term and long-term license. It's definitely something that's possible, but like I said, you need to consult an attorney. I would not try to, just start an LLC and then go do it on your own. There's very competent and capable attorneys who can help you do this. But yeah, it's something business owners should think of for sure, how they can use their income in different ways, how they can use different assets to qualify and show credit as well, and show that you're capable of owning and maintaining a large credit line and you're paying it back as well, which will be good for you going forward if you want to obtain more credit.
Exactly. This is huge. I'm happy that you're here, and I'm glad that we took some time.
You too.
because this is so insightful, especially now when it comes to intellectual property, especially in the area of AI, because people now have to think about AI, Web3, trying to figure out how do I connect, my NFT, my coins or my art, how can I protect this intellectual property that's an asset? Let's say I turn this logo into a coin or I turn this logo into an art form. How can I intellectually protect myself? So what measures should they be taking? Should they be asking their advisors in the process, or should they get somebody that's focused on AI within the legal firm for tomorrow?
I think as you go, you can figure out what type of lawyer you need. Like AI in itself is not new. Like AI has been in so many technologies we already use, but it's developing. And I think as a result, lawyers like myself, we're still learning. We're still trying to, keep up as well with these new technologies. So I don't think there's ever going to be like an expert in one thing, like as you grow as a company, you should actually utilize several experts. There is no lawyer that is an expert in everything. If one tells you run, run from that lawyer, utilize different experts, utilize them at different points. I think one of the biggest mistakes that business owners and entrepreneurs make is they table their legal services like, oh, we'll get a lawyer after we raise 100K. No, you need a lawyer at all stages for different points. Anytime you have an issue or a question, you should look for a lawyer who specializes in that. Don't wait until a large event or specific event to occur to then get a lawyer. So that's definitely my advice. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. When you mentioned the trust, you mentioned, the loans, the grants, the scholarships. I didn't even know myself that. I knew about those first three. I didn't know you could get a scholarship fund for a business. When you hear scholarship, it's just school scholarship, but I didn't know myself. So this is also exciting to hear because people can now go and search and say, well, scholarship fund for business. Then they find a school or institution or 501c3, or anything that is, you never know what that could bring. So I'm just wondering, how can someone navigate through that from a point of novice?
Oh, that's a good question. Really, you just have to be comfortable with all areas of the search world. That's Google, that's social media as well. And using your personal network, LinkedIn is great as well. Reddit, even. I think Reddit has so much information on there, and it's going to take some time. Like you won't become an expert overnight. It takes literally years of working and not even like sitting down and studying. It takes actual, experience to learn something and to call yourself an expert. So I think, doing that academic knowledge, through books as well, not just books, but, the mediums that we use most often today, it can be very useful to you. Like I said, joining groups, professional groups. There's Facebook groups, if you Google conferences, I definitely suggest attending conferences and just trying to be more of an industry leader, a thought leader, and joining these spaces that already have, other industry and thought leaders in them. I think you can learn a lot. Even me myself, one of my 2024 goals is to join more conferences and podcasts and whatnot and talk to more like-minded people as I really want to grow up more in my career. And I think even business owners, you can do that because, businesses don't operate alone. Eventually, as you scale, you will want to think of other businesses that you can integrate into your product or your service or your offerings. And you never know where that could lead. So that's why you have to network and not just focus on growing your business. You have to think of other people and owners that are doing things in your ecosystem and even outside of it. And that is honestly how you grow. I think I've spent the last 5 years just learning how to be a lawyer. And now that I'm comfortable with being that, I'm ready to meet other lawyers and talk about what they do and talk about their businesses versus, building my skill set.
That's amazing. That is phenomenal in itself, just because I see that when you start to ask more questions, you get more answers, and those answers lead to less problems, down the road.
For sure.
Okay. I think with this is a masterclass. I think somebody is going to just sit down, take it all in, start taking action. I would get an ECVC, like you said. start asking them questions. That question will lead to another referral, and that can also help people, grow. Now, I know people love to connect to people they've heard the information from the first time, then go into the referral they heard to because of trust and also consistency. So I know that for you, how would you work with a client? Let's say they want to work with you. What would they need to have ready so that they're not asking you questions when they're supposed to?
Have ready what you need, in a description of your business, what you've been up to, what your goals are, and what you need from this prospective lawyer. Because either way, I'll either be able to tell you I can work with you, or I'll be able to refer you to someone who's better. So I think a lot of times people don't even really know what they need. You might not know specifically what the legal term is, but you should at least know, okay, we want to expand, or we want to buy this business, or we want to get some agreements drafted for bringing on new employees.
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Especially to bring on the new employees, like you mentioned. Some people wonder, is it better to have contractors? Is it better to have employees? How do I handle my payroll system? I believe there's a legal standard for the number of hours you're meant to work before you get those benefits. So it's like, they don't really know these things until they see it on paper, and they're like, okay, I need to add one more hour to the bill so that I can, get it. But they don't really know because they're going off assumptions. So this is really great for people to know.
Yes, definitely. And don't be scared of getting a lawyer early on. I think a lot of people a lawyer's expensive will wait until we have some money. No, you'll pay more, honestly, if you do that. I think, there are some great solo practitioners, but even the big law firms, at times you give, free services up to a point and then build discounts. If you're a startup, they understand that you don't really have the money to pay these large legal bills, but we want to get them in the door before, they explode in their business. So, don't be afraid of exploring large law firms, media law firms, just do your research.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Karachi, for joining the We Don't Play podcast show. You've really brought so much value today. I feel like this is one of those... You're welcome. I feel like this is one of those episodes that people use as a manual to navigate their business landscape, especially when they have questions. They're like, oh, she said this. Oh, I remember what she said. So this has been great. And I know there's more to it, but this is just the beginning. And I believe having this step is the first way to get things going. I would love for people to know more about you and how they can connect with you if they want to stay in contact or if they want to, work with you. What are the options they have?
Yeah, sure. So I don't know how this works, but I can give you my Twitter.
Yeah, that's fine.
And my Twitter sometimes I do talk about technology and just legal developments. So my Twitter is Achilihu. That's Kachilihu. Achilihu. And then if you reach out to me on there, I can definitely give you some basic advice and see what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I know when they reach out to you, that's where the conversation starts, because you want to start where the conversation is really happening. You don't want to send a message and it bounces back and you're like, I messaged you 3 weeks ago. So that's the fastest way. Let them get through to you that way. And then you can take them to email, to calls, and then, the rest is history from there. So thank you again, Karachi. Really appreciate you. And I can't wait to bring you back on the show soon.
Thank you for having me. And I'm looking forward to joining again in the future. Bye.